Well, it is that time again, everybody. Hope you are doing well. My name is BirdDog John, and I am back in action.
In those scenarios, it's good to neuralize the cameras. You guys know that best.
Very straightforward. Plug it in, go to the web UI, link the source, walk away. You know, like super simple. I keep looking over at the chat, and I keep seeing you are full of it. Tasty, spicy meat snacks. Covered in flavor. I mean, you can't go wrong. So what's going on? We've got a handful of folks here in the chat, and I really appreciate that. What's up, mate? Hey, Warren, how are you? Appreciate it. Hey, Robbie, how's it going, man? You're just talking about you. What's going on, Tom? Ahoy. How is it going? What's going on, Go Web? Good to see you again. Thanks for hanging out with us again today. Appreciate that. I feel like I'm in this video more than anyone but John. It's true, NetApp. You are, I'm going to cut this up and put this in the next intro. Good stuff. What's going on, everybody? I am BirdDog John. I got my. I noticed that I have my BirdDog uniform on today, so we're going to make sure that we keep consistent across the show. But yeah, got my sweater on. Although this one's not a hoodie, this one's just a crew neck. So changing it up a little bit. Watch out. Might you never know. You never know around here. Anyways, hopefully you're doing well. I am BirdDog John, back for another hour of our regular support show, and so hopefully we find you well and happy and doing whatever it is that you guys are doing. We got lots of going on in the chat right now, and the first thing I'm going to do is jump over to birddogjohn.tv and make sure that audio is happening. So it is. That sounds good. This good old RE20. You guys know how I feel about that. Anthony, he says, so many questions. It's true. And will BirdDog John be on the show? I will be on the show. Generally, I am always on the show. So hope that's not a major disappointment. But hey, how's it going, Anthony? Good to see you, man. Matthias, hey, I'm binging this one. Happy holidays to all, and happy holidays to you, man. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate that. It's always nice to have you around. What's going on, Kevin? Howdy, howdy. Senseless. He's in the office, folks. The ticket master extraordinaire. Senseless is hanging out in the office getting work done, so good times there. Always good to have him on the show. And now, the host you've all been waiting for. Ooh, I could work that out. I don't know if anybody's waiting for me to show up. Actually, the people they're expecting to see is Dan and Eamon, and they're asleep, so around this time. Now, they've told me, anytime, man, we'll jump on anytime. But I always feel bad because it is literally the middle of the night over there right now. It is 3 a.m. in Melbourne. So maybe we have to do like a secondary show. That's like a special show or something, maybe like a Wednesday or a Friday or something where they can join us from their sunny location in down under Australia. Transmission, what's going on? Good morning from New York City. We are packed for this week's corporate event. 2 P200s. Oh, you mean you're all packed up, ready for the event. Cool. P200, I had to think that went through. BirdDog keyboard, Stream Deck XL, and an M4250. vMix, 34 seats at a U-shaped table. Each position is saved to the Stream Deck. Ooh. Now, you could use audio triggers and in vMix and have that camera just call presets based on audio triggers. But that's something I haven't ironed out yet. I want to figure out how to do it because the next studio that I'm building is going to be podcast where I can have physically people in the office and have two cameras and we can just have a conversation, and vMix takes care of that for me. And so I've heard allegedly that there may be a way to set audio triggers for cameras to then switch to those either required presets or at least call cameras. And so that's gonna I'm gonna have to be able to do that though when I am like I have nothing else to do, because I feel like that's more of a pet project than anything. But hey, man, I'm excited for you. That sounds like all great gear. I'm really excited to hear how that goes. We're actually using this event to figure out audio triggers at this scale. Boom. There you go. What was I just saying? That's awesome. Well done. That's exciting. If you figure out a simple way to do audio triggers, let me know, because I would be all about that. Especially if you could figure out like a slight delay. Because, like when you're watching a podcast and somebody's like telling a story and the other guy's like, yeah, you don't want it to like switch back and forth between shots. You want it to be like 2 or 3 seconds of audio and then switch over to that. Or maybe that's too long. Maybe like a second and a half or 2 seconds of audio, full audio, and then it switches over. If you figure that out, maybe we could ask the almighty Tom Sinclair that question the next time he's on the show, because he graces us with his presence every now and then, to which I am eternally grateful to Tom for blazing a trail long ago and continuing to set the standard for the rest of us to try and swing for the fences, if you will. So good times. Now, I do have a special guest on the show today, but it's not what you're thinking. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I do have a special guest, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce her to the show. She is the P240. Tom beat me to it, where he had a 240 before me. But that's kind of par for the course. I mean, Tom Sinclair is going to get he's going to get those cameras before I do, because he holds that level of importance. So the 240 is here, and I'm using the 400 to look at the 240, which I think is hilarious. But there she is, tucked up in the corner where traditionally my 110 sits. And so I've brought my 110 down from the nest, and she's sitting here on the desk doing nothing today. Well, the 240 is now it's now that side shot. So in the playlist, I'll fire up the playlist here again. In the playlist, you're going to see that that camera shot, and it is basically in that same roost that the 110 traditionally is. If you're a regular here on the show, then we can. You'll see that shot, and I will do a little bit of a navigating through the menu today, and we'll take a look at that in, let's say, at least 10 minutes. Let's give it 10 minutes. Chat's ongoing, so I want to be sure that we get through some of that. What's going on, Kev? vMix audio triggers are super cool, but they're a little too gimmicky for my preference in real production. From my experience, it looks too much like a Zoom where the spotlight flashes back and forth every time someone coughs. I also haven't messed with it too much, though. Is the new studio going to be next to the room with one of each camera in it? Actually, potentially, yes. Potentially. So what NetHab is referring to here, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, we had watched a webinar where Panasonic and NewTek and Netgear all chatted about their NDI capabilities. Panasonic seemed to not realize that the conversation was going to be about NDI. But anyways, besides that, they showed off this like try out our products room where you could rent it. Oh, that's the 240 up there. That's a little. I need to shrink down here a little bit. Oh, that was awfully fast. I'm gonna fix that. So they showed off all of their cameras in a room, and they're all looking at like a similar subject. And so, I was thinking, oh, we could get like a little room, an actual room like that, where you could rent it out on cloud and drive it about for a little bit. And then, maybe that would be a good way to. How do I change the time on this thing again? Maybe that would be a good way to, let people see the cameras, see how they work, and all that sort of good stuff. So, there we go. So that was an idea that I had gotten off of that show. I also took notes on kind of what not to do when you're interviewing people, because there were some things that really drove me nuts about that webinar. But anyway, well, we've already gone down that road before. We probably don't need to beat a dead horse, if you will. So yeah, Tom over John, absolutely. If I were picking my talk show, Tom Sinclair all day, because he's got a great show, good format, and everyone knows him. So why not, right? Why not? Yes, Frank, we are upgraded. And then this is the that's worthy of that. So 240 is in the studio today. We're gonna give that a go. Now, I've been told we got to do some stuff with it from HQ, but then I think it's going out on the road, so it won't be here for long. And I think the 110 will go back in the roost unless we need that for some reason. But around the studio, I don't have two of the same camera, so I've got. I mean, they're similar cameras, across the fleet, but with their varying differences. So the 200 is the one that you're looking at right now. 240 is up in the roost right now. I've got a 110, I've got a 100, I've got a 120, and I got a 400. So I don't have a P4K, and I've talked about bringing one of those into the studio and setting it up and what have you, but yeah, I let time get away from me. So, there's that. Okay, so that's the 240 shot that I had set up, and I just roughly set the settings and whatever. So it looks similar to the 200, but honestly, I think it looks better than the 200 personally. So if this one's going to stay here in support, then we may load it into the studio as a full-time, having a full-time job, and then the guys can use it as they need to. But there's but there's that. We gotta sort out where it's supposed to be. I think this one's supposed to be for sales, so we'll get that handled. There's software that you can add to vMix, which not only switches the cameras, but it does it non-robotically. I'm looking forward to reviewing the Play when I can get my hands on one. Anthony, you don't have one? Interesting. We should talk, man. Are all your cameras on BirdDog Cloud? Can we control them? No and no. They could be on BirdDog Cloud, but my instance of Cloud is currently off because when I run the show, I don't want to use up any CPU, and I don't want sales to remote in and start steering things around. So the idea, however, is I want to get an office space that we can set up and get some halfway decent lights, get kind of like a stuffed dummy or something like Crash Test Dummy, dress him up like a BirdDog guy, employee, and then set him up at a desk or whatever the situation is, turn on those studio lights and let people play with the cameras. And there's just got to be a way that we can go back to like factory mode, right? So I'll have to think that through. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do, so that sales can remote in and be like, look, you want to look at a 240 in the studio? Here's the link to the 240. You can rent it for 15 minutes, drive it around, do whatever you want to do, and then it's a great idea, and I'm totally going to steal it from Panasonic. MTash lurking in the background, and GoWeb, greetings from India. What's going on, GoWeb? Good to see you, man. I mean, good evening. It's always evening over there, right? I love the cloud room idea. Yeah, I do too. I thought, well, that would be a great, like, accessible way for people to see the capabilities of the cameras. And you could literally line them up in a row on one side of the room and say, okay, they're all pointed at the same thing at the same distance. See the differences. You tell us what you like and what you don't like, and go from there. So it's a good idea. And I mean, I'm kind of doing that here, right? I'm kind of trying to showcase what each of the camera's capabilities are. I have controlled lighting. Actually, this light is starting to go, so I might try and get like a panel light or a Falcon Eye or something like that, because that would be sweet. We'll see. Merry Christmas to me. I'm almost tempted to buy it myself so I could just own it. That'd be awesome. But anyways, time will tell. These lights have lasted like a year and a half or something like that, which is pretty good. I use them a couple times a week, and then we leave them on for recording and whatever. So I'm currently working through an education course, which we're getting more and more feedback that people really want. So working on it. Christmas is coming up quick, though, so we'll see how much of the content I actually get recorded before the new year. That's kind of my first benchmark, but we'll see. What's going on, Brayden? Good morning. How's it going? Speaking of plays, says Kevin, I have 3 en route. Should be here tomorrow, along with a batch of 200s. Wow, a whole batch. How many is a batch for you? I don't. That's one of those subjective words. I have a batch of cameras in here, and there's like 6 of them. One that's not even plugged in. But yeah, that's cool. Exciting stuff. I'm actually using a Play right now. How can I show this? I know what I can do. Give me 1 second while I steer the boat over to my little monitor. Try not to spill all my secrets. But it's a P100 that's up in the ceiling right now. And this is my desk camera normally. Okay, so I have just a crappy Samsung monitor that is running this. This image is going to be brutal, just FYI. but I'm using this monitor, and this is a vMix output to show, so it's like right under my camera, so I can see all the shots that are up and coming and my regular routine. So I've got a play connected to that TV, which shows all of those, and it's great. It's good for positioning. The vMix output actually does the grid, and so that's super helpful. The playlist. Let me turn that off. So yeah, so you can see here the grid on the screen shows like my positioning and everything, which is great for setting up a shot. It shows me, if I want to call up a shot or whatever, I can throw whatever image in there that I want to do, make sure that everything's all lined up correctly, and then push it over. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's a good setup, and that's all run by Play. It's just my confidence monitor, basically. A really inexpensive way to grab the NDI feed. And that Play is running in multicast, and so it's not taking more of the network than required. This image is also then sent throughout the network, so the guys in the office could, decode this signal if they wanted to, if needed for any sort of reason. But while vMix is running, vMix NDI output 3 is actually the image that you're looking at, and it's being sent up to StreamYard via NDI webcam, and then I'm running vMix on its own machine, so it's outputting those NDI sources and sending it over to a computer that's then sending it up to StreamYard. So keeping the CPU usage fairly balanced, which I like. I'm in between 50 and 65% of the CPU to do all of this, and I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a good way to make it happen. And this computer's not like super crazy. It's an i7, 16 gigs of RAM, I think, and it's not super heavy, but it does exactly what I need it to do. So good times, everybody. Good times. There's my rig, and the playlist is back on, so we should start seeing other cameras here in a second. If the cloud room actually happens, please consider making a video showing you how you set it up. Okay. That I could do. That is something that we could do. Now, I can share my cloud setup if the BirdDog team needs any testing points. Well, the funny thing about BirdDog is we have employees all over the world, and they've all got cloud instances. And so we've got a guy in the UK, we got a guy in Germany, we got a guy in France, we have a guy in Norway, we have lots of guys over in guys and gals over in Melbourne, Australia. We're here in Michigan, and then we've got guys that live in California, Texas. Texas? Yeah, Texas. New Mexico. We got a guy in Jersey. We got a guy in maybe another one in like New York soon. I don't know. So they're spread out all over. So if you want to do like a country test, there's somebody local that can help you do that. We've got a guy. The one place I don't know very much coverage is Asia, and maybe Phil could tell me a little bit more about this, BirdDog Phil, because he would know. But anyways, so yeah, there's lots of endpoints, but I do appreciate that GoWeb, and this may be a great way to test, a little more out in the field. I don't know if we have anybody over in India, so that might be a good place to try it out. First Presbyterian, what's going on? I have an M4250 in a sanctuary with a GS108. I move my two P200s, which I move between the sanctuary and the festival hall. I feel like we've talked to you before about this. I also shut the P200s down during the week. I don't care for the GOS 108. That thing is notorious. So just FYI from one network guy to another. Just a heads up with that. I like your 4250 though, and if that's the thing that's governing the network, like if you're running the VLAN out of there, and then you're plugging into the GS 108, you might get away with it. But the GS series, I've just never really. When I came here, I just started losing faith in them. We used to use them in the data world, and they were okay, especially the throwdown boxes. They were okay, but the GS 108 PP, I think it is the specific model. That one we find all over the places, and we find that people report tickets with that switch. I'll put it that way. So it may be working great for you, and that's wonderful, and I hope it does. But just FYI, we hear a lot about the 108. I could give you a list. We hear a lot about the 108. We hear a lot about the Cisco 2960. The 2960 series is a discontinued series that's in every federally funded school and government operation across the United States, because ages ago, like 20 years ago, there was a grant that went out and everybody upgraded their network infrastructure and they all bought the Cisco. Did I say 2960? 2960, I think it is. That thing has PoE issues. Big time. Big time. And traffic, like packet trafficking issues as well. But there's a reason why Cisco doesn't support it anymore. And if you're going to go Cisco, the 350 series I know is used a fair bit. And that's great for kind of an entry-level Cisco realm if you're a Cisco fan. I've always said Ubiquiti Gen 1s, they do small installations pretty well. Gen 2s, steer clear. And a lot of people use Gen 2s and claim that they have no issues. I just don't trust them because they're iOS driven, but what have you. Yes, there he is. BirdDog CJ. He is my Texas reference in the company. We just have a distributor in India. Hey, what's going on, Phil? There he is. Some people are watching. Actually, I noticed over on Instagram. I'm sorry, not Instagram. I noticed on LinkedIn. I get my social media platforms messed up. So we're broadcasting on the BirdDog LinkedIn page, and that's pretty cool. And there's 10 people over there on LinkedIn that are watching, and they don't show up in my counter here. And so there's a bigger audience happening than at first glance. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. Jump in the chat. Let me know where you're at. Let me know if you have any questions. That's what we're doing right now. We're answering questions about that. So, yeah, good stuff. I missed what you said because of a call, but I think I heard how many is a batch? 3 currently on their way. That's a good batch. If you made a batch of cookies, 3 batches of cookies, that's a good day. Was hoping to get them in one order for a bundle, but the projects didn't work out that way, unfortunately. Oh, bummer. I changed from first Oh, hey, Tom. How's it going? Good to see you. I'm not sure if I'll be able to use this one or the other. Well, I see you on both. So, how's it going? We've got Jason in the SEA. Yeah, I just didn't know where in SEA is he. Is his home base Melbourne or is his home base somewhere else? I actually failed to ask him when I saw him last. Super great dude. If you're in the SEA area, get to know Jason. That guy, I love that guy. I have a M4250 set up with MAC to IP address mapping. I followed your video in setting up the 4250. And? Successful? Was it easy? Was it? Give me your honest feedback. I'm a big boy. I can handle the criticism. I'm the head of the support department. I better be able to handle criticism. If I couldn't, I have no business being here. We have it all the time. You can stream to LinkedIn. What is the acronym TIL? Sorry, hang on one second. I should know this. Oh, today I learned. Yes, you can stream to LinkedIn. And I use StreamYard to do this. You can also stream to Twitter. And let's just everybody pause for a second for a big announcement. I'm gonna turn off the playlist here. And what can I use here to get this? I don't know what. Oh, here we go.
Good news, everyone!
Yes, indeed, there is some good news. The good news is you can reach the support department now on Twitter. We have our own Twitter account. No joke, everybody. If you're on Twitter and you're on the go and you need to reach out to support, hit us up at help_BirdDogTV. This will link you directly to our ticketing system. You won't receive a ticket number necessarily, but we will get a ticket with your information, username, whatever it is that you tweet at us. That will show up in our ticketing system, and my stellar agents that work in two offices down, they will be able to respond to you directly on Twitter, or if it's going to take more than I forget what the character limitation is currently. It's like 240 or something like that. It's going to take more than that. They can DM you. So hit us up on Twitter, especially if you are on the go and at a job and don't want to open your email and type it on. Log on to Twitter, send us a message, or add us at help_BirdDogTV. I have tested this function. It is working, and it's actually quite slick. Works pretty well. And our guys can help you out there, and that would be really cool. So there's another channel. There's another way to reach us. Hit us up on Twitter. Even if it's just a, hey, I'm just testing this out to see if John's a liar. All good. Go ahead. Test me out. I would love it, in the words of George Costanza. No, seriously, yeah. Give it a go. See how it works. An operator is standing by. A ticketing agent is standing by. Roger is joining from Mississippi. What's going on, Roger? Welcome, welcome. Glad that you could join us over on LinkedIn. Good stuff. And now you've just heard. Now, BirdDog has a Twitter account, but it's run by marketing. Okay? So, full disclosure, marketing runs the Twitter account. And you're going to find cool user stories there, and exciting announcements are going to be there. And you should definitely follow us on Twitter for the BirdDog TV handle. What's the Twitter account? Do I have it on here somewhere? I guess I don't. I should really know this information. But anyways, BirdDog is on there. But the actual help_BirdDog TV, that is, you know what I think it is? I think it's bird_dog_gear is the Twitter page. I didn't make that one. Anyway, there is one for the support department. And if you need help, we can definitely give you a hand over Twitter. And I'm super excited about it. And we're streaming on Twitter. So this show is now going to be on Twitter as a part of that thing. So if you're a Twitter fan, giddy up. Giddy up, giddy up. Good times, everybody. First Presbyterian of LS? That's in my neck of the woods. Howdy, neighbor. Jason is based out of Brisbane. Everybody's on board there. Today I learned, thank you. Today, TIL, that TIL. Today I learned that it means today I learned. Thanks for keeping me relevant, Pandorica. Really appreciate it. I need to call you later, by the way. Just a heads up. My P200s are my problem. I'm not sure if they are going to work, and anytime... This is suspenseful. I assume there's more to this sentence. So what's the issue? Are they not taking the IP addresses that the M4250 is assigning it, or what's going on there? Tell Jason I said hi. I definitely, if I ever talk to Jason, I definitely will. My friends in Europe will probably see Jason or talk to Jason more often than I will. But it was a good time when Jason's around, so he's a guy worth knowing. And Go Web, I think you'll agree with that statement. So. You lie like an olive. We'll see. BirdDog Gear, says Kevin. There it is. So there's the Twitter page for the actual BirdDog marketing group. And some people, I think, tweet at us stuff, but there's an official help. So again, if you're a regular here, now you know. We haven't really promoted it or said anything about it. I lit it up last week and I tested it a couple times and it's working. So if you want to, it's another just quick channel. It's I'll just open my Twitter account and tweet at them and see what happens. So good stuff there. Yeah. Yes, on IP addresses, I can't find them on the network. Interesting. So they're not set static, right? And so do they keep showing up at the fallback address? So the question here is, to troubleshoot this, plug one of them into the 4250 and make sure that it and plug your computer into that 4250. Make sure they're on the same VLAN, right? And open Studio Monitor, see if it's there. If it's not there, see if it's fallen back to 100 after a minute. So set your computer to a static address, 192.168.100.123, 22255, and then see if it shows up in Studio Monitor again or shows up in the web browser at 100. It should. It should at least fall back to that fallback address if it's not getting an IP address. The thing about I'm curious there. So this is where that GS 108 comes in. I'm a little bit nervous about that thing because I just don't trust them. But anyways, if you plug it in directly to the 4250 and it gets an IP address, wouldn't it be great if the 200s had an LCD screen? It would be great. I can't wait for the 240. Seriously. Let me jump over here real quick. I know you've been staring at this, but like, check this out, man. Yoink. Look at that right down there at the bottom. See that? Oh, I'll take Tom's message off here for a second. Look at that. There's a little LCD screen right there. Man, I cannot wait for that to become a regular thing on BirdDog products. And if you were on Tom's show, or if you watched last Wednesday's show on Tom Sinclair Eastern Shore Broadcasting, one of the things he was like, there's a little LCD screen there, which I absolutely love, and the crowd went wild. I'll tell you that. I also feel that way, that all of our products should be able to tell what the IP address is. You can go in and turn that off. If you're like in a secure area and you don't want your IP addresses exposed, no problem. You can turn that off. But most of us are not operating in those sorts of environments. The vast majority of us, I say most, that's pretty broad. The vast majority of us are not operating in those environments. And so you can, all you got to do is walk up to it and look, oh yeah, it's getting an address, right? So to Tom's point here, Tom in the chat, it would have been more convenient if we could just look at the camera and see what IP address it's getting. But anyways, Tom, in your instance, I would take the camera, plug it into the 4250, take your computer, plug it into the 4250, make sure it's on 2 ports that are selected in that VLAN, and then open Studio Monitor, see if it shows up there. If it does, it gets an IP address and you're on the same network. If it doesn't, then you got to go one step further and set your computer to the fallback range. And as long as you haven't changed that, then set your computer to 192.168.100.123. And with the 22255 subnet mask, hit OK, close those windows down so that it applies the settings to the NIC card, and then look in Studio Monitor or go over to Chrome and go to 100.100 and see if it shows up at that IP address. Those are your first 2 steps. And if you get that far and you still can't find the cameras, you can tweet at us, or you can open a ticket at help@birddog.tv, and we will probably set up a remote session to remote in and take a peek, because if those 2 things don't work, something else is going on here. You could also hit it with like Neuralizer to see if that resets the network card on the unit. That's also kind of a self-help option. But those are not normal behaviors. Now, if you're going into the 108 and then you're going into the 4250, that's where that's why I'm trying to eliminate that first, to see if is that what's causing this, where it can't do the hop fast enough to get back to the switch. I just don't know, but there you go. That's where I would start first with troubleshooting that, and then once you get there, then let us know. Your video needs to be updated later with corrections are announced. Tell me where async and sync. Also flow control enabled or disabled. So the original setup was that flow control was supposed to be disabled. However, with the latest NDI 5 update, we discovered that oh shoot. I show it in the video, don't I? Okay, there's a video. I don't want to you know what? I can find out. Hold on one second. Because my whole system's running this way. And I know the IP address of that switch that's right there on the ground. I mean, it's not on the ground. I don't put my switches on the ground. I'm too lazy to buy a rack. You heard it here first, folks. Okay, so port control, I have mine set to symmetric. And frame size is set to 1500. Flow control disabled. Oh, I'm sorry. Cancel here. 1 second. Flow control is symmetric. It would be enabled on this port, and it is set to 1500. And that's an NDI 5 discovery. That actually somebody over, at least that was working with HQ, found that out, that we actually get better results with the frame size of 1500, symmetric flow control, and that enabled, and that seems to work better. So it's just more stable. And here's the deal: we're discovering stuff all the time, right? And you kind of want us to discover stuff all the time, truthfully. But yeah, that's what we've discovered so far. Now, when that changes, I'll announce it again. But I do show that in the setup video for the 4250. I do talk about flow control, I believe. I know the default with NDI 4 and when NDI 5 launched, we said flow control off. Don't use it, don't allow jumbo frames, all that stuff. But now there's those 3 settings, so give it a go. See what happens. See if you get better results, and if you don't, turn it off. That's the nature of our business, that's for sure. If you'd like a second set of eyes, I'd be happy to stop by sometime and take a look. I can send my contact info to your office people. Oh, that's super nice of you, Kevin. The on-camera display with the IP info is so cool. I can already see how it will cut setup time on site. Yeah, here's the deal, right? Like, a lot of these guys that are doing running and gunning, they're showing up, they're setting up on site. If you have a problem, it's just really helpful to look and see, is this camera getting an IP? Tom has it set up correctly where on the 4250, you go in and you set static IP addresses in the DHCP reservation list, and then the switch will behave no matter where you take it, right? Like, it'll do the same thing every time, no matter where you take it. Well, that's the advantage of setting it up that way, because then NDI, the run and gun or plug and play or whatever you want to call it, that function was designed to work with DHCP, TCP networks. And when we start deviating from those defaults, you get behaviors, you get things, you compromise things. And so you compromise on things, but you also compromise things. So the goal here is to make it as straightforward and repeatable as possible so that the cameras behave the way that you expect them to. So DHCP all day, single subnet all day, single VLAN all day. DHCP reservations if you want to keep the IP addresses the same. If you're running 200s, that would be super helpful, right? Or 100s. They don't have screen either. The 110, 120 does, the 240 does, the 400 does not, and the P4K does not. So I have advocated for, and the 120 doesn't. I have advocated, though, that any device that we make, this was after Play was announced, by the way, any device that we make needs to have a little LCD screen. It's not super expensive to install those, to have those as a part of the unit. And so for the convenience of the customer, I think that it's paramount. I think that makes or breaks, it sets you apart, because you can turn it off. You should have the function to turn it off in case security is an issue. You can always go less, but you can't get more. You can't add a screen to the 200s now. Like, that's a done deal, right? So going forward, you can always shut them off. You can always turn the LCDs off, but you can never add it afterwards. And so for a convenience sake, why not, right? Back in the NDI 3 days, NewTek recommended flow control, but then with NDI 4, they said it's so much better if you don't need it anymore. And now NDI 5, funny story, it's better if you turn it on. Well, I don't hear NewTek saying it's better if you turn it on. I hear them saying you get better results, but it's up to you whether or not you want to turn it on or not. I have operated switches in both functions and fashions, and they do perform. I run this one with symmetric and 1500 flow control on, and I do seem to get pretty consistent results, in particular with the 4K cameras, because there's so much more data going on here. So I just find them to be a little bit more stable in the 4K configuration. So is there a thought on making BirdDog NDI switchers? Currently, no. I don't know of a development of that product. However, we have seen people in the industry starting to go down those roads, and so I'm not going to say it's outside of our purview. I know that one of the things that they want to do, that BirdDog wants to do, is to create as much of an ecosystem as reasonably possible. And so we want BirdDog to be the solution for your ideas and for your design, for your NDI designs. We don't necessarily want to, we don't want you piecing together a whole bunch of different cameras and devices or whatever, we'd like you to say, look, here's how you do it. Here are the things you need to buy to fulfill your dream. But I have heard that we're not planning on writing like video switcher software, like a vMix type of thing. I don't foresee that coming. Partially because there are guys way down the road that do it so much better that we would rather walk closely with vMix and Wirecast and TriCaster and make sure that is that's a great experience. And also because you can get a vMix license for like super cheap, man. It's like $60 or something like that, or $100 just for a single license. Yeah, it's for if you're looking for a software switcher, Wirecast is fine, vMix is fine. They all have their places. TriCaster is is currently the flagship, which is also fine. We have a TriCaster. We have a TC1. It's a refurbished TC1 in the next room, and it works great. So there's that. But I don't know about an actual video switcher. The closest thing we have to it right now is the keyboard, where it outputs a router, and you can switch between sources there and just use that NDI feed. But, that's all NDI driven. So you can look at it in Studio Monitor. You could run it to multi-viewer if you wanted. Run a multi-viewer like I'm doing here, and then switch between cameras off the keyboard. But that's kind of the closest we've got to it so far. I keep all of our 200s in static, and then I run a dual NIC to the internet uplink. Okay, that is one way to do it. That is one way to do it. Do you use a Discovery server to do the static stuff? Because, yeah, there's a lot of, let's say there's a lot of compromises if you're just running straight static on any BirdDog device or any NDI device. There's just compromises. But if you're using a Discovery server, that's the way that I would recommend doing static, because it'll create a lot more consistency across the fleet. But that is a way to do it. It wouldn't be the way I would do it, but that's fine. You're not me, so you don't have to have my approval to design your network. And look, I've said it before too. Like, network guys, really good network guys are as unique. They build unique environments and they design them based on how they're able to service them and handle them or whatever. A common thing that we get with the static camp is, well, we just want to know what IP address all the time. We never want it to change. It's like, well, that's what I'm saying. Use the DHCP reservation list and leverage all of the services that come with DHCP, because that's what it was designed for. But if you're shutting down the cameras and firing them up all the time, and using them for short stints, that would probably work with static, just as is, but I would still recommend a Discovery server. We sometimes have to do a remote support for outside operators setting up our cameras, and the screen with IPs would eliminate 75% of the troubleshooting time. Agreed. What does the camera say it's doing? What IP address does it think it has? Or what is the name on the camera? Like, it shows you the BirdDog dash name, and that's the way to do it, man. So yeah, I'm really excited that we're setting up our future devices. I hope we'll have screens on all of them. Anything. The Play slipped through the cracks but money and cost and all that too. But it would be great if on the underside it had the IP address information and everything, right? So you could just like look at it and then put it back on the TV and walk away. It would have been slick, but we missed the chance there with that one. I missed the chance. I should have made the recommendation before we launched the Play. That's it. We're sold. We're picking up the 240 at the B&H on the ish. Well done. Yes, the 240 has the screen, and I'm not gonna lie. From what I've seen so far, I do like this lens equally to the 200, if not more. So we'll see how it plays out here. I'm gonna monkey around with it a little bit. We had a chance to kind of test drive it yesterday for a few minutes, but I'm gonna try and get a little bit more time in with it. And it's here in the nest, I say, because it's up in the roost, but the crow's nest, that's what I should call it. So we have that up there, but I haven't had a chance to really dial it in other than getting it to look similar to the 200. But so far it's been pretty easy to set up and get going compared to our cameras. It's relatively the same process. So hardware, not software. So we haven't talked about that. I know that we haven't talked about a hardware video switcher I know we can do it. It would all be NDI driven, that's for sure. Like it would be a similar design to how the keyboard currently functions. But we talked about a video switcher that someone had made, right, for their camera fleet last week or maybe a week ago, 2 weeks. But yeah, it's an interesting idea. We're interested in interesting ideas. It's just a matter of execution and if it's possible. So it'd be tough to see an LCD screen on the play in the back of the TV. Well, the point of it is for service, right? So if it was on the underbelly of a play, do I even have one in here? I don't have a play in here. I'm using it. But if it was on the middle of that magnetic circle, right, that little LCD screen, that just the little same one that's in the cameras, if it was in the middle of that unit, then if you had a problem with one, you plug it in, it turns on, you can see, oh, okay, it's getting 1.17, and you put it back on the TV, and then you get into the web UI that way, just as a way to reference. But anyway, it's not like even these screens like this, the 240, I don't know, it was maybe 10 feet from me or 8 feet away, and I can't read that LCD screen even with my glasses. I can't see the letters or the numbers on it from here. So it really is more of a serviceable item where you walk up to it and look at it, and then yeah, that would be the purpose. I think it's actually like it's a support function more than anything. Hello from Finland. Hello, how are you? To find cameras in. Okay. Hopefully there's more to that. So, there we go. Hello from Finland. To find cameras and network, Studio Monitor is the way to go. But how about converters if you don't know the IP address? Okay, so there's a couple of ways to do this. First of all, you can download a free version of Central if you'd rather, and that will show BirdDog converters. And it'll give you the little gearbox. You can click on it, and it'll take you to the web UI, especially if it's a decoder, right? That's really the issue is you got to flex out or multiples, and they don't have the LCD screens. The 4K family all have LCD screens. The Studio had a dot matrix screen, and the Mini did not. So that was a question we got all the time. I put it in decode mode. Now I can't find it, or I just unboxed it, and it used to ship in decode mode. So it was like I just unboxed it. I can't find it anywhere. You can use a program like Bonjour Browser if Bonjour is allowed on your network. Bonjour Browser is a defunct program from ages ago, but it will find local device names and show you the IP addresses of them. So you click on the device that it finds, and then it'll, in the little text box on the bottom, it will tell you what IP address it has. Man, I'm having like bubbles here. I'll get some water. I've already drank through my coffee. The caffeine's hit the system, so here we go. That's good. All right, I got to get through lots of water today too. So you can use a program like Bonjour Browser, and it would pull up the device. Now, if Bonjour is disabled on your network, obviously, then that's not going to work because you can't query the MDNS to find out the local names and to find out the IP addresses that are associated with them. You could always look at the routing table. You could try to ARP-A the table and see if any of the MAC addresses of the devices show up in the ARP table. Typically they do, but you just look at the MAC address on the bottom of a device. So I've got my trusty dusty Mini here, and it had its MAC address listed on the side, and there's like a little white sticker. I guess it's this camera you're looking at. So there's a white sticker on the side. Tells you what the MAC address is, and so you could find it that way. You could also, if they're brand new devices, they're going to have their short form name. That will be their local address. And so you could say HTTP semicolon / and then BirdDog dash and the last 5 characters. So here it would be BirdDog dash 18E as in Edward 6B as in Bob .local. So you'd say BirdDog dash the last 5, but be sure you put HTTPS, or I'm sorry, HTTP and not S. It's not a secure website. It's a local address, and if you don't put HTTP semicolon / BirdDog dash and then the last 5 .local, it's going to query Google to find it, and obviously it's not going to be there. So it'll take you to a website, it'll take you to a Google search and be like, did you mean to write not that? So there you go. Yeah, there's that. Good times. But that's the way you find it. Generally, there's a handful of tools that you can use, especially in decode. Flex outs don't have. Now, if you plug a flex out into an HDMI monitor, and power it up on your network, it will show you the IP address on the screensaver. Same thing with Play, by the way. Play does that as well. And that's kind of their way around it. They're like, well, we didn't need an LCD screen because we show it here. It's like, yeah, but it should be obvious what the IP address is. Like, we're doing IP network things for non-network admins. So we need to make it obvious. And you can turn off the function. You can tell I've had this conversation before. You can turn off the function, but it's more convenient just to have it turned on, and then people who are non-networking people can understand there's the IP address, and they watch a video that says type the IP address into a web browser and it'll take you to the web UI. That's the point, right? So we're getting there slowly but surely. Don't call me Shirley. You can get away with showing the IP on the splash screen of the Play or decoders, but for cameras, the screen is huge. Agreed. And cameras, again, if you're on the same subnet, you should be able to pull it up in Studio Monitor, so that should be fairly straightforward. For the 200, the 100, PF120, P4K, P400, the A200, there's no screen there. A300, no screen. But if you've got a proper NDI network, plugging it in and opening Studio Monitor should be all you need for anything that's encoding. For decoding, it gets a little tricky. And so that's where we put the IP address on the screen. That is on Flex Out, and that is on Play. But, yeah, it would have been really nice to have a little screen on there, too. Because just a matter of convenience. You're walking around and checking things before the event starts, and you want to make sure that the IP addresses are all coming back correct. Now, with the screen, if you use the static function of our networking stuff, it bypasses, it will just say that every time, even if it's having a networking error. So it kind of screws you over there. Another reason not to use static. But I'm pretty adamant about that. So anyway, it's because I've dealt with, let's just say, hundreds of clients who have put their devices in static and then they disappear. And the gotcha is usually the default gateway. But anyway, or they miss a number and then all of a sudden it's gone and they don't know what number they missed. Man, it's been a long 3 years. I'm still sad that the studio is EOL. It's true. The studio is EOL. I don't even know. Do I have that video? I did a video, right? It's on StreamYard. I did a video where we played taps for studio. That was a good day. It was a funny day. We announced that it was going end of life, and the studio's been a great product, and it's been the backbone and the original BirdDog hardware, and it was a good device, especially in late in life. She got really stable and worked really well. She has one little audio bug, but other than that, she worked pretty well. And yeah, she just kind of ran out of juice. She's not able to do our new encode processes that are a fair bit more sophisticated than they used to be. So I think there's an NDI 5 version coming out for it. I've heard rumors that that's happening, but no idea about timeline yet. Hey, Kevin, I just sent you a message for our website with my info. They're from Tom. There you go. Alternately, you can just put a slash after the BirdDog local, and the browser will recognize it as a URL. Well done. Oh, that's cool. That I didn't know. I'm going to test that out. That'd be great. That's a great little tip and trick that maybe we all learned here on the show today. Let's find out. Let's go to BirdDog. Whoops. BirdDog dash Studio P100.local. It may. Oh yeah. It does go there. So there you go. Learn something new every day. I'll have to use it with a camera that I've never been to. Or some. I'll test that. I'll test that function and confirm it next week. But I'm sure it works. I don't know Kevin to lie. So, unlike me, this untruthful show. Question: which bear is best? False. Black bear. Question: is there a way to send the video signal to a projector using Ethernet, and with the possibility of multiple computers can send their own signals to the same projectors? Guests, or from the control room? So yes. I mean, this is really the function of NDI. These are not, so before I go down this road, these are not point-to-point devices, all right? So these are not plug a mini like in at the computer and plug a mini at the projector and connect them together by Ethernet. That is not what this device is, okay? This is not a point-to-point device. These are network devices, and so you put them on the network. They get IP addresses, computers, all that stuff, right? They get an IP address. They can talk to computers. And you generate NDI and make it available on the network. And then you can assign a decoder, so a flex out, a mini, a studio, a 4K device, a 4K family device, a play. You'd assign a signal to that device. Now, the thing about it is with especially BirdDog devices is we're using a fair bit of bandwidth. And so we're decoding in sequence and taking live data and showing it as quickly as possible we can on the screen. So if you are wanting to video switch, you actually need to take that to a video switcher that will output NDI and send that NDI signal to the decoder. And that's what I'm doing here, okay? So I've got multiple cameras across the fleet, and you've noticed that the playlist is running and it's switching my camera views just to kind of change it up a little bit. Well, what's happening is all of those NDI signals are coming into vMix, and then vMix is outputting a single NDI signal to my BirdDog Play, to this live stream, and it is switching those. It's actually video switching those live, but also it has one NDI output, and so I could literally unplug cameras, but the NDI feed won't. The actual NDI frames won't stop going out the NDI output because vMix is generating that output. And so it's better if you're going to use multiple devices across a network and you want to switch them quickly and live, it's better to do that in a video switcher, an actual video switcher. We don't have a video switcher per se where you can take an NDI feed from multiple places and switch them quickly. What you'll notice on a decoder is if you change the source, like if you go and you say, okay, I want it to decode my P200, and then you go and you say, okay, now I want it to decode, Gunther's computer, and you switch the source inside the decoder, it will break the actual signal that's coming in. It'll stop the packets from coming. It will reacquire the new signal, and then it will start unpacking those and then showing those on the screen. That process takes 5 or 6 seconds to do. That's not fast enough to do video switching that way, to do it live. So what you want to do is have an actual video switcher. If you're going to have multiples and you're doing this in a presentation format or putting it up on iMag or something, you're going to want to do to have the ability to video switch it, and you want to actually use a video switcher. So there's 2 ways here, but yes, to answer your question in the most basic form, yes, you can have multiple NDI encoded signals on your network and assign them to the same decoder and show multiple NDI sources, as long as timing is not like showing them back to back to back. Like you're not having a Zoom conference up there, right? And you don't need the option to do this. You don't need this to happen between sources. If you do need that to happen, then you need to have an actual video switcher in the control room, bring all those NDI signals into the video switcher, and then you choose what goes up on the screen. You have somebody do that for you. Or you can automate it. Triggers will do that too. I don't know if that answered your question or if I went down some rabbit holes that you didn't intend for me to go. So no updates on the studio. That's too bad. I was hoping to see NDI 5. Well, there is a plan for NDI 5 to come to studio. I just don't know when, because there's a lot of devices that are waiting to get NDI 5. So I don't know when that will be. Hopefully it rolls out sooner than later, but I don't know. It probably won't be this side of this year, that's for sure. So I didn't catch that reply from Tom. And 2, for the record, I tweeted BirdDog support to test your claims, but I have not received a response. Well, yeah, so first of all, there's no automated response out of that thing. So that ticket is going to go into the system. Are you wanting me to respond to it? Because I'm actually not looking at the help desk right now, but I can. Let's see here. So generally, we ask that you give us a little bit of time to respond, especially if you're hoping I'm going to do it. Then then we'll need to do that. But let's see here. Open tickets, support department, all tickets, all open tickets. And I need to look at this a different way. Let me see where. There it is. All right, so let's and boom. You're welcome. You did send that in 33 minutes ago, so I think 33 minutes is pretty good for a response time. This thing is alive. It is there, and I'll even assign that ticket to my queue. There you go. So hopefully that came through for you. I appreciate somebody testing it out. And now we're having a conversation. Whoops. Boom. Love it. Like I said, we can also, if the response is going to be more than whatever the limit is, I think it's 240. We could send you a direct message over DM in there too with like instructions or whatever we need to do. So that's all cool. And those things come in fairly, we can choose how we want to send you the message. So there it is. That's pretty fun. So yeah, not only did you receive a response, but you received a response while I was live on air. Now I'm not the one that's going to be managing the ticket desk. We have agents for that, but they're also working through the open tickets that are there this morning. So there you go. Panasonic has just launched their first range of projectors with STM slots, so you will be able to use one of our modules in them soon. Oh man, that's so cool. Hey John, greetings from Paraguay. Oh, that's cool. How's it going? Greetings, Alex. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for jumping on the show. Appreciate that. Jake, what's happening? Good to see you, man. It's BirdDog Jake, everybody. A regular here on the show, BirdDog Jake. I didn't realize that it was actually a proper ticket. Yes, it is. So it does come into our ticketing system, and then we can track it. So if that agent is going to be out sick for 2 weeks, somebody else can take over. Instead of you actually tweeting at a Twitter account that is only managed by my phone, that would not be good service. I need multiple eyes on things like that, and that way we kind of cover our basis. That's the first time that I've heard that a 3 to 5 second delay on converters. When you and Jake were on Cloud, you talked to Central 2.0. You mentioned that this should be instant, I assume. Is that not true? So I'm talking about changing the sources on the converters. I'm talking about when you go to the web UI and you're decoding, and then you go to the web UI and you say, okay, I don't want to decode my 200 anymore. I want to decode my P4K, or I want to decode my PF120 or my vMix source. It will break the source connection from the decoder and stop the packets from coming. It will reacquire the new source, which means it's got to find the IP address, probably got to query the MDNS and make sure it has the signal. And then it's got to bring that signal across and start showing it and like unpackaging each of the packets in sequence and making sure they're all there. If it's set to TCP, it's got to send acknowledgement packets and all that stuff. That takes a couple of seconds to do, to make that transition from one source to another. I'm not talking about the decoders being delayed by 3 to 5 seconds. I'm talking about the actual acquisition of the source, the decoding source, taking a few seconds to switch between sources. It's not a video switcher. It's a video decoder. So it's an NDI it decodes the NDI source. That's what I'm talking about. It takes a few seconds to do. Once it's connected, yes, the decoder itself is 1 frame. That's the full NDI standard. Now, how many frames get added because of your HDMI cable quality, because of your TV, because of your bunch of things, right? And your network, that'll all add latency. But the actual decode itself is 1 frame. Not 1 second, 1 frame. 1 frame. Let's talk about switching soon. There you go. Sounds good. Let me know when's a good time. So these two are now having a conversation between us. Aren't SDM modules like mini computers? How's the latency on them, especially with iMag? I had one here, but I couldn't get it working because it was like way pre-production, and we needed like secret menus in the NEC TVs, and it was really like crazy. And apparently, this is standard in the industry. I couldn't rack my brain around it, but evidently, the way that I reconciled this invention was we related it. The IT or support department related this to like contra codes on old school games, where you could get the module and then you put the cartridge inside the module and then put the module in the gaming system, and then you had access to all these contra codes. That's what we related, having an NEC advanced expert menu. You had to like take the remote and like up, down, left, right, left, up, down, 4, 5, 6, like all this crazy stupid stuff. And I just was like, you could just like have a button that says like integrator mode or something, but they want to hide it. So dumb. And everyone's like, oh no, that's standard in the industry. And I was like, it's pretty crappy. It's a crappy experience for everybody. It's a pretty crappy experience. But anyways, that's besides the point. You posted this on the Facebook group, right? I think I saw your comment. Yes, Jake, I did. Solid. I'll record a quick video to show you. I like narrating your conversations, by the way. Question. Is there a known issue with BirdDog Flex backpack and BirdDog intercom system? So you're talking about comms. What is the known issue that you're reporting? Because Game Shark, NetHab, that's the one. Game Shark. So, what specifically are you referring to? Because not that I know of. I actually have a backpack here that we use with comms, and it works pretty well. But is it an audio issue? Is it just flat out not working? Is it what? And what version of comms are you running? Because what was the last version of comms that came out? 2.0? I'll have to look. But the last I checked, my BirdDog backpack, the Flex backpack, was working. So, and I couldn't get the Flex to work with it. Did you have a video signal going into it? Like, is it fully functional, up and running, showing a video inside comms? Could you not hear the comms signal in Studio Monitor? Do you know that trick? Open Access Manager on the computer that comms is running on, Open Access Manager, and on the receive groups, add BirdDog-comms and BirdDog-send-comms, and hit OK. Let that window close, and then open Studio Monitor and see if the Flex is even generating a comms channel. Because if it is, talk into it and see if you get the audio meters. And if that's true, then the Flex is working correctly. The comms channel is working correctly. And there's something wrong with the signal getting either into Director or through your headphones or something. That's the easiest way to troubleshoot it. I've got a cool idea for multi-cameras using QR codes printed out. And if you point the camera at the QR code, you could triangulate where they are in space. Interesting idea. Or why not have like a calibration device? And so if you triangulate, you have 3 cameras. You could put, oh, hang on. So you could have one camera that's looking at like the home position, right? This is an interesting idea. You have one camera that's looking at the home position, and then you set up other cameras around the room, but point them at the camera that's at the home position that has a QR code somewhere on it, or like some sort of marking or some sort of thing that's on it that the cameras would recognize as that camera is looking at home, and then they could orient themselves to their relative position looking at the thing at home. That's an interesting idea. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Like a quick calibration, like here's my setup. Here's where I want all the cameras to look, So you set one camera up, and then it has the little module or a QR code or something, and then they all look at, it's kind of like an NDI 5 Genlock idea, right? Where they're all looking at the time code. but maybe you could look at the coordinates of the camera, and then all the cameras would look into that direction as to like, here's the stage area, something like that. Well, that's an interesting idea. I thought I had the newest version of comms and also the newest version for the encoders. Video signal, yes. Audio, no. Studios and minis work great with comms. So yeah, I would definitely check the comm signal in Studio Monitor. So there's a way to reveal them, and there's a knowledge database article that tells you how to do it. But the way that I described it, Open Access Manager, receive groups, BirdDog-comms, and BirdDog-send-comms. Add those 2 line items and hit OK. And then open Studio Monitor. This will reveal the comms channels, the NDI comms channels. And then you can listen and see where the fault is. And so is it the flex? Maybe the jack on the flex is busted or something's wrong there. Maybe the comms audio is muted for some reason. I don't know. That might be the case. But if you're talking to the headset and you can see the audio, you know how to reveal the audio feedback in Studio Monitor, right? Right click, go down to settings. I think it's under audio, and it says like dB meter. Enable that. And if you can see the little blue lines going, then you know that the comms channel is working out of the flex and that there's an issue with the signal getting into the director. If you're having success already, then I suspect it may be a localized problem, but I have a flex unit here that does work with comms. I know a flex backpack that does work with comms. So it shouldn't be the case, but hey, thanks for the narration, John. First time actually seeing you live. Hey, well, thanks for stopping by. Been using BirdDog products for 4 years now. Keep up the good work. I will let the guys know. I'm the head of support, but I'm not the head of design. So I will relay your positive feedback. Positive feedback is always welcome, by the way, everybody. The support department is not the compliment department. It's the support department. So we get it. But kind words are also widely accepted and appreciated at this department and at HQ. So if you're in Europe, feel free to say a nice thing about Phil. He's a good guy. He needs some positive feedback as well. I know Jake and CJ, they like to hear positivity. That's just the way it goes. Any other BirdDog guys in here want to hear some positive? This is a place to be, apparently. Appreciate it, Josh. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there a way to turn comms on and off with the flex in the UI? There used to be. I don't think there is anymore. I think they separate, because it used to be the way that audio jack works, I think, is there's an analog button. Do I have a flex on the network? Whoops. BirdDog Flex, are you on here? Does not appear that there isn't a flex currently on my network, which is crazy that that's the case, but that's crazy. Yeah, Phil, anytime, buddy. You know I love you. There used to be a way to turn off comms, Alex, but I think they separate it, and now the comms channel is just always on. But if you select analog, then it changes the backpack's jack to ingest the analog audio. So you have to turn that off. You have to tell it you want that jack to be comms. Like you have to, I don't know. I can't remember. There used to be. I don't think there is anymore. I think they took that out. So, if you select is that off? I'm gonna have to get my BirdDog guys, my agents, to look because I don't know. Come back next time and I'll find out for you. Yeah, there used to be an option for it, but I haven't been able to find it in a while. Yeah, I know they took it out, and that was intentional because the comms channel either has the headphones, and when you mute it on the UI, it still works for the comms channel is still on. It's on just all the time. Just depends on what audio is being sent. Is it being across the wire? If you like plug in an audio jack and plug in your, nobody has iPods anymore. You plug in your phone to it and you play music, that should come across the comms channel. But you can tell it whether or not to integrate the audio or mute it to the NDI stream. But comms is always on at all times now, which is kind of nice because if you want to use comms, you shouldn't need to go in and turn it on. It should just work, right? So it just works, everybody. So yeah, I think the comms channel is just always on constantly. So that's what you do. You plug in a TRRS port jack to there and plug it into some music and play some music and open it in Studio Monitor with that little Access Manager trick and see if you hear the music. If you do, the comms channel is working. And then it's a question of why isn't it getting into the director? So maybe it's just a button in the director in Comms Pro that's not doing it, but there's that. All right, that makes sense. I'll try to get to work, see if there's anything else I can do. Also, any updates on Dante for comms? No. I don't have any update on that. You could use Bridge. You could convert those Dante channels to NDI audio, and then how would that work? More on that later. That I don't know. I don't know what the answer there is. But yeah, more on that later. I did promise everybody that we would take a look at the web UI for the 240, for those of you who are interested in knowing. And so let me see if I have that open. I do have that open. And let's just jump to the dashboard and have a little look-see. All right, so I'll turn off my playlist now. And let's go on over to the desktop view. Where is that? Here it is. And, oh, I'm going to make this not low bandwidth mode. All right, here we go. Okay, so over here on the BirdDog page, we've got the standard login information, which everybody loves to see. Super secret password. And if you're using Chrome, the latest version with the password manager, it's going to ask you to save it every time. No need to do that, though. And so here we go. We are logged in. This looks oddly familiar to everybody, and it should. This is kind of the standard. Now, this NDI chip shipped to us with 6.5 on it, which I thought was interesting because I thought that we were shipping it with 5.4. But that's good news. It's a little more relevant. Obviously, the MICU version is really low because this is a brand new camera. So MICU 3 is the current iteration. And we're functioning just as we would expect with any sort of BirdDog camera. Good times, great oldies. Let's head on over to the network menu, and we'll take a look and see what's happening there. So like all NDI devices on my network, I'm running a DHCP setup. I haven't changed the BirdDog name yet, which you can do right here, the .local address. And this is super helpful if you've got multiple cameras and you're doing multiple shots. You can name them Cam 1, Cam 2, Cam 3, whatever you want. I do recommend that you leave the BirdDog dash name in there just for simplicity's sake, but try not to make this super long because some MDNSs have problems with really long local names. And so try and keep it somewhat concise. And if you've only got one of them, you could do something like just P240. So I'm going to change it to that and just call it that on my network across the fleet. And that way, when it's on my network and the guys want to check it out, they know which camera is which. They don't have to guess. So we've changed it to 240. Now, this is Chrome. And so when I hit update, it went back to the cached site. But it did actually change it. All we got to do is refresh this. And if we refresh it, you'll notice then that the name changes to 240. So don't let that throw you off. Don't think that your computer's not updating or your camera's not updating. It's actually just a Chrome cache issue. Pretty regular, and that happens on all of our devices. It's just the nature of a web UI. We're running in TCP mode. I haven't changed anything here. I could run this in multicast. That would be fine. But I'm not doing that currently. Just out of the box, it's still TCP, which I think is interesting because RUDP is kind of the new NDI5 thing, but TCP is still the default. And I don't know if that's intentional or if I should read into that. I don't think I should, but you can devise what you will with that. And I'm not using a Discovery server in this office, in this studio. So no need for that because, of course, DHCP, MDNS, all that good stuff. I've got it working all right. Next is the System tab, and this is where we're going to change the password if we have a security requirement. Change the password here. You can also do the update. So if you get a firmware download, you do that here at the System update. You'll notice that there is a MICU updater at the bottom of the board. So if we ever come out with the need to update the baseboard, this is one of the places you can do this. I do know that the USB function does still work. And so if for some reason you're having major issues, one of the things you can do is go back to the old school, back to the past, back to 2020 and do the USB update. We were doing those up until this year, let's be honest. But yeah, you can do an old school update, or you can do it here. The goal is to do everything on the web UI so you don't have to climb up into the ceiling or rent a lift or all that crazy stuff that we used to have to do. To service the cameras, we're trying to make it super simple, super straightforward. And I should reiterate here, the P240 is no different than the 200 or any of the other fleets in NDI 5. You change everything you want to change on the web UI. You don't change it with the dip switches. You don't change it with the dials. We just had a guy today that had a 100, and all these symptoms were happening. And I was like, man, it sounds like a baseboard issue, like it's loading and it's changing the thing. I said, make sure that the dips and dials are set. And we went back, we asked the customer, and sure enough, that's what was going on. The dips were changed. And so the camera would load, and then it would look at the dips and dials and change it to whatever that is, and that was causing the error. So the best thing to do is to make all of the changes that you want for this camera right here on the web UI in a convenient place in the comfort of your own office. So this is where you would do those updates. This is also where you would add any sort of remote sources that you have on the network, and I'll explain that in a second, but also the group list. You can update the group list. Now, the first thing you can do is you can download the list, the current list, the way that it's supposed to look, and open that in a program like Notepad++. Even Notepad would be okay, but Notepad++ is a little bit more desired, and there's a video tutorial on that, by the way. But this is where you would download if you want to add this camera to a soft group. And I go into a fair bit of detail on the knowledge database about groups and why you might choose to use those. I'm happy to go down that road one of these shows if there's interest in that, but I won't do that right now. And then the same goes here if you're uploading remote IP lists. Now, on a camera, you might ask, what's the purpose of having a remote IP list? Because this is an encoder, right? And so encoders just function as nodes on networks. Well, you might want to show a source that's on a different part of the network, on a different subnet, as a fallback. And so let's say this camera goes offline or something happens and it stops generating NDI, and you want to have a fallback source, but that source is on a different subnet. Well, you could do that here. You could add that source to this list, and then it would show up as a fallback option on the AV menu. So here we are on the AV setup menu, and there's some things here. Now, what I was talking about is the actual fallback right here, failover sources. And again, what that is that if something happens to this source, this NDI source stops generating NDI, you won't be dead in the water with no signal at all. You can assign it an actual source, and it will start showing that one instead. So that's what that remote list is for, because it needs to know what source do you want to show. Now, hopefully, you're running a single NDI subnet, and this conversation is moot. But the option is there in case you have a larger install or multiple subnets, and the fallback source that you really need is going to be on that other network. Well, that's how you do it. And then you can refresh that list, pull it up on that list, and add it as the fallback source. Now, let's go top to bottom here. So the general, this is actually really the same as the P200. Audio output settings. Do you want to loop it out, or do you want it to be calm? So are you going to plug in a headset to this thing, or do you want it to be the audio to be added to the NDI feed? That's what loop means. And this would be audio then that would be added to the NDI feed, but also would go, the audio that's coming in would also go out the output. It would loop out. So if you're adding audio, music, microphone, something like that, it could be looped out as a 3.5 source as well out of that camera. That's the purpose of that. Or do you want it to be comms? Because comms is going to need a microphone in and headphones out. So that's why you have to specify here on the camera. All right, that OLED, do you want that thing on or off? And if you're mounting this thing upside down, do you want it inverted? So you could do that here. You can harshly adjust the audio levels here with gain. This is a digital gain. It's not a true, like there's no preamp or anything like that. So the best thing to know, the best thing to do is to have your audio signal sufficient before it gets to the camera. Okay? Have the audio system the audio signal nice and clean before you plug it into the camera, and not add anything or take anything away via the by the audio in or out gain structure. And then if you want to restart the NDI chip inside the camera, this is where you do that device restart. You can also do that on the dashboard. But that's what that does. Device restart is a NDI chip restart. It's not a full motherboard reboot. It's just an NDI chip restart. So if you want to like add it to groups and then hit restart, that's where you do that. All right, NDI managed. I prefer NDI managed as a support guy. I think that that's the way to do this. Allow the camera to take whatever it needs to do, and don't restrict it in any ways. But this switching it to manual is just a threshold setting, okay? Just the maximum amount of bitrate that it can use before it starts degrading the picture. So it's not a turn up the throttle type of thing. Oh, I turned it up to 350. It's like that doesn't mean anything. The camera's just going to use what it needs to use. That's all it's doing, okay? So NDI managed, might as well just leave it, because you shouldn't have any bottlenecking issues at the camera. You don't throttle the node, you throttle things further on down the line. So anyways, there's philosophy there that we can talk about. Are you using NDI groups? This is where you could add a camera to a group and enable it. So you could, if you want, for example, okay, so people ask me, hang on, we already talked about groups on the system tab. Yes. If you want this camera to be able to see other cameras in a group, you need to add it here, okay, to the group list, so that it can see it. You can see those sources here, for example, or here, for example. But if you want this device to belong to a group that other devices in a group can see, you add it here. You put the name in here, and then you say enable. And so my studio is actually called Studio, whoops, let's try that again. Studio 2901, because that's what I call my studio. And I could hit enable. And then now the settings are set, and then I would hit device restart. And what this is going to do is going to restart the actual camera, restart the NDI feed. And then I actually have that source here in my office, or in vMix, in my studio. And so when it comes back, I know that that NDI chip has been restarted. There it is right there. It is now back. And that source has been added to that group. So that's how you add a source to a specific group that you want. This is the name of that source. And so it has been changed to BirdDog-240. That's good enough. I don't need to change it to anything else. If I had multiple 240s that I was naming BirdDog-240, I could give them unique names here. And then in Studio Monitor, let's take a little peek in Studio Monitor, because I want to show you how this works. Look at this. Inside here, you would see multiples, okay? So instead of having it say, where are we here? BirdDog Studio P100. I actually have two of these on the network. But one of them, if you've been around long enough, you know, is named Auburn Road, which is the camera that's out watching the street. And that camera, so the one above my desk is called Cam, and then the one that is watching the street is called Auburn Road, and it's also in this menu right here. It's not here on this list. It's inside this subgroup. And so you can name them individual things. So you could say, P100, and then give it individual names, Cam 1, Cam 2, Cam 3, Cam 4. And that way it cleans it up in Studio Monitor, especially if you have a lot of sources. It shrinks that list down, so then you say, okay, this is a P100, and this is on Cam 1 or whatever. So that's how that is. That's the purpose of that function. You can make smaller subgroups. Now, there are some trade-offs there, because when you go then to the web UI, you type in birddog-p100.local, which camera is going to come up, right? So you got to do it inside Studio Monitor to use the local address that way. That is the trade-off. If you want to change the video format, this is also where you do that. So this is a good place. I'm running 1080p 5994 as per usual. The NDI audio, this is, do you want to add the audio to the NDI stream or mute it? That's where this is done. So you can turn it on to analog, or you can say mute. Okay. Stream to network. This is a way that you can actually, and this is in the API, where you can actually stop the NDI video from going out, and it will just show the screensaver, which you can select up here. And the screensaver can either be the BirdDog, the beautiful BirdDog logo. It can be just a black screen, which is not helpful to any IT guy, or it can be a screen that you capture. So you can set it to something silly, or you can set it to a corporate logo or whatever. You can capture the frame and then show that. And that way your IT department knows, oh, that something's wrong with that signal, or it's not streaming to the network. But if you put up like your company logo or something like that, then it's not too obtrusive to those who also see it and are not in the IT or NDI realm. So there's that option. Now, we have talked at great length about, wouldn't it be great if you could upload your own image and then have a company logo of high resolution and that show? And yes, I have sent that recommendation over to the devs. So no idea if they'll be able to do that, but that would be pretty cool. If you want your tally light on or off, this is not a manual switch. This is just saying, does the camera accept tally information? The tally information comes out of your video switcher. So vMix does it, Wirecast does it, OBS does it, TriCaster does it. But that tally information is an NDI feed. It's not manual on-off switch, okay? So this is where you would tell the camera, yes, I want to see those tally lights light up, or no, keep them dark. You can genlock this to another source, an NDI 5 genlock. This is just watching the time code on another camera, and it keeps them in sync that way. You can do that. There's more on NDI 5 genlock that's out there. Do some research before you light that up and find out exactly what it is. It's not like the old BNC genlock stuff where you have a generator. It's just watching the time code on one camera, and you can put all your cameras in the fleet to watch that one camera, and it's kind of like a pseudo genlock option. Failover source, we already talked about that, and then you can change that source list if you need to. So you can refresh it, and then you pull it down. Like if I do that, I refresh this list, it should pull some sources here. Yeah. So then you can set a failover source to something else that's on this network. All right, moving along. Cam control. These are these settings that we all know and love. Inside here, we've got white balance. We've got cam control, where you can actually move the camera around. You can set the focus, the speeds. You can hit the image reset if you want to go back to factory image settings. 3D, this is an experimental function that we're working with right now, but this is where you would enable it and put in the IP address and the port number for that 3D application that you're using. The PTZ preset saves and function. We get some questions about what does PTZ only in camera mean? PTZ only is only pan, tilt, and zoom coordinates. Camera is pan, tilt, and zoom plus coloration. So if you're changing the iris and the shutter and all that stuff every time for every preset, then you want to select camera and save your presets that way. If you only want the camera to move around and not save the coloration because the coloration is going to change too much, then save it with coordinates only, which is PTZ only. And how you do that is you hit save and then select the one that you want to save. You can do up to 9 presets this way. And that's just the same as Studio Monitor. Studio Monitor allows you to save 9. If you want to save more than that, you can use the API, or you can use something like Companion, BitFocus. You don't have to have a Stream Deck to use Companion. Companion has an emulator module that allows you to pretend like you have one. And so then you can save up to 16 on there. And the API allows you to save up to like 100 or something like that. Ridiculous. So, all right, this is where you're going to set your exposure mode. And mine is set to manual, obviously, because that's what I do. But you can actually, I think the full auto options in natural lighting, which we were testing out in the office, work pretty well. I'm actually very impressed with the P240's ability to white balance a non-studio environment. So thumbs up there. They've done something right, and this lens is able to handle it a little bit better than it's able to handle it a little bit better than our previous cameras, I think, personally. You can set your gain there, your iris settings, and your shutter. A general rule of thumb is you set the shutter at least to whatever your frame is. So I'm 1080p 5994, so 1/60 is what I'm going for, or higher. Okay, so at least at least keep the shutter at whatever your output is, or double, preferably double. But in my instance, I'm just using 1/60. I've got f-stop 2.5, and then I've turned the gain up a bit to kind of compromise for, it's kind of a closer shot, the 240. So I need a little bit extra light. So exposure's there, white balance, we already saw this, but this is full on manual mode, basically user mode. And I've balanced it as quickly as, and as it's kind of a dirty balance, but there you go. Detail mode, you can set this to auto, but manual gives you a whole bunch of more options as well if you really want to get into the granular settings of the actual image detail. But I just like this level. It's a pretty quick and easy way to do it here in the studio, especially because I have controlled lighting, and I want it to look as close to the 200 as I can. And then we get into noise reduction. We get into the options to the actual picture options. So flip and mirror. If you want to actually flip the image, if you want to mirror the image, flip it upside down or left and right, that's where you do that. You can turn on the IR filter if you want, which is, I've seen some interesting uses for this IR filter. Like they flooded a stage with IR light, for example, and then this theater like did this acting out in the dark, and they used the cameras to watch them. It was bizarre, but pretty cool. Chroma suppress, highlight. These are all same functions that we have inside the P200. And the stabilizer is here. Now the stabilizer crops the image a little bit and allows you some leeway for slight jostling and moving. It's not a full-on stabilizer like you could buy at B&H, okay, with like the rubber compressors and everything like that. That's not what this is. This is a digital stabilizer to help with HVAC systems and that sort of stuff. Everybody's use case will be different, and sometimes it'll work great, and I've seen sometimes it doesn't make any difference. The walls shake way too much, or the doors slam too much. Like they have those big panic bars, and so they click shut really hard and shake the whole building. You're probably not going to get great results with the stabilizer in that scenario, and in that case, you might want to create some sort of system that's going to cushion it. If money is no object, they make those sorts of things for this exact type of camera. So actual stabilizers that balance it and keep it rock still during those instances. And then your gamma settings, of course. This is where we're going to manipulate a lot of the black level stuff. Now, we all know that the P200 doesn't really have a lot of manipulation of the black level. The 240 does. I've been monkeying around with some of these 240 settings in the black level, and yeah, I get my crushed blacks look that I'm going for pretty easily, actually. And I can switch over to this shot, and like it's framed the same as the 240. So I'm a big fan. I think that that's pretty cool, and that yeah, it looks pretty nice, I think. So let me just look through here. Where is my 240 overhead main shot? This one. I want to do this. Okay, I'm just going to cut that. Okay. So anyways, back to the web UI, my little transition music. So back to the web UI, this is where you would manipulate some of that black level. You can change the actual gamma settings. So I can talk about this another day, but there are various ways of interpreting the black level information, and so that's what that is you can change the style of it and then manipulate it as you want. And then there are also like enhancement options. I haven't gone into this too much with the 240, and I'm not going to today, but I could maybe do an in-depth look at that. This is the scopes option too, which we've enabled on our cameras. A lot of people just don't want to spend the money on a scope. Like these are particular devices that do this, and you can buy a 12G device or whatever, and it'll work. But this is a quick and dirty way to do it. And what I really like about this is it gives you the option to put it on just the preview, so like the proxy stream, and not on the full stream. And so in a TriCaster, that's really helpful. So yeah, good times, great oldies. Let me just jump over here real quick. And hang on here. I have a message. Okay, good. It's nothing super urgent. So yeah, let's switch over now to the rest of the show. We're past the whoa, it's almost 1 o'clock again. Oh my word. Um, so NDI Dante for Bridge to Central Pro to merge the audio with the video. Yeah, that is an option. However, Alex claims I don't want to use Bridge. I want Dante built in. But thanks. I'm gonna keep on waiting. Yes, unfortunately, you will have to continue to wait for now. What is the default position for the dip switches? It varies per camera. So which camera are you referring to? And I can either try and use muscle memory or I can find that out for you. I don't know what the defaults are for 240 yet because I literally unboxed it yesterday. But I'm pretty good with the rest of them. So, yeah, give me a chance and I'll see what we can do. Manual bandwidth control is just to force the quality to go down to fit onto the network too small to handle the traffic. Agreed. And that is why I say if you're venturing into the manual bandwidth realm, we probably need to have a networking conversation because you shouldn't bottleneck the end devices. You should only, like if you're using that function, then there is then the next thing you buy is a better network infrastructure. That's the deal. It's like kind of like a Band-Aid. As I see it, as I understand it, as I think about it, the managed function is like, oh, we turned it down to 80 and everything's stable. It's like, okay, that's a network problem. Your network cannot handle more than 80 megs out of a signal. That's a problem. Kind of a major one too, because it's just gonna lower the quality of the image. It's not gonna stable. It might stabilize the performance, but like, what's the point in owning a sports car if you can't drive it? Right? That's just me. Unhexable says, hiya, folks. Hey, what's going on? Hopefully you're doing well. The dip switch is for the P100. All right, the P100 has... actually, it's written in the manual, first of all. So before we go any further than that, it should be written in the manual. But the P100 has... the 200 has 2. Oh, no. Crap. It's all running together. 1 second. One moment, please. Stand clear of the closing doors, please. Okay, so the default for the P100, yes, there are 2 banks of matrix switches on the bottom. The left one should be all off, but 1 and 8. So all down, but 1 and 8. And the second one should be, number 4 should be on, and everything else should be off. And then, because, yeah, and it's actually, I think maybe, was this listed wrong in the manual originally? Yeah, anyways. And then the rotary dial on is there a rotary dial on a P100? I don't think there is, actually. I think it's the resolution is set on the matrix switches. So yes, the 100 has 2 banks. The left bank should be 1 and 8 should be on, and the rest should be off. And then bank 2, the one on the right, should have 4 should be on, and everything else should be off. That's the default position for the 100. I thought the default position was the same for all cameras. Negative. It is not. I can keep going. It is the same. It's the same for the 100, 110 and 120. The 200 only has 1 bank of matrix switches on the bottom, and that one is 1 in. I think 1 and 8 should be on for the 200, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 1 and 8 should be on, and everything else should be off. But then the 400 is like all jacked up. It's 1, 3, 4, and 7 are on, and 2, 5, 6, and 8 are off. The rotary dial on a HD camera is set to 0, but the rotary dial on a P240 is set to 3, and the rotary dial on a 400 and a P4K should be set to 4. Crazy stuff. But yes, those ones I know. The dips and dials. That's a fun it is a little annoying that they're not all the same. But they technically, those boards are very different from each other, and so kind of makes sense that they're different, but they are not the same. So please contact us. Here's the pitch. Please tweet at us at help_BirdDogTV if you want to know the dips and dials for your specific version of camera, and we'd be happy. I'm just going to leave that up there for the rest of the show. We'd be happy to help you over there if you don't like submitting tickets. If you don't like submitting tickets, but you're obsessed with Twitter like most of this world, just hit us up on Twitter, man. Help_BirdDogTV. Go ahead and tweet at us, and my friend Kevin, was it Kevin? I think it's Kevin. He tweeted at us, and lo and behold, we tweeted back. I tweeted back. So there you go. All good things. All good things. We'll try and be quick for you. But Twitter doesn't light up somebody's phone. Like our Twitter account, it goes into the help desk system, and that way we can actually record it, give it to somebody of relevance instead of like one guy having to do everything. Those sorts of things. So good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's take a look and see what else is going on here. It looks like that's everything in the chat. So that's good news. We are quickly approaching the 2 o'clock hour, and I have only had coffee to eat today. I didn't have snacks on stream. I bought something at the store, a sour candy, let's be honest. I bought sour candy yesterday at the store, and then I forgot to bring it in because I put it in my jacket, and then today was so mild, I didn't wear a jacket, and idiot me. I remembered like a whole bunch of other stuff I've been neglecting to bring into the office for almost a month now. So I brought all that in, did a little, hung up a poster in my office. But of course I forgot the one thing that I do on this show other than talk about NDI is eat strange foods and sour candy and spicy. It's been a while since we've done something spicy. So anyways, maybe we'll do that on Thursday. Good times. Let's take a peek over at LinkedIn real quick because I love me some LinkedIn. And there's only a couple people over on LinkedIn now, so all good. It's been a 2-hour show, so it continues, But yeah, good stuff. So there's the 240. The 240 exists. It is alive. It has one of those legendary LCD screens that everybody so badly covets. And so I think it's a great step. It's a slick-looking camera. It's got that Mohawk tally light. It's got a beautiful threaded lens that you can use. Again, LCD screen. It has a little carrying handle on the back. It does feel like a step up in terms of premium build materials. Somebody took it yesterday and was like, wow, this thing feels legit. And I agree. I think it is obviously the next generation of the 200, and the image looks good. It's a great quality build. It's got all the conveniences. Got a really nice tally light on it. There it is now, currently live. And it's been a pleasure to use so far. So I did a real quick and dirty setup with it this morning to get it into the studio, try and match the 200, and it works pretty well. I haven't dialed it in, but that's all good. So 240's here, and if you got questions about it or you're looking through stuff and you think of something, join us on Thursday because we will hang out again at Thursday at 11 and have another show. Now, I should warn you, we've got some schedule changes coming up, and so Christmas is on its way, and it is just a couple of weeks out. Let me see if I can get a calendar somewhere. All right. Oh, yeah. This is actually going to open the calendar app. So Christmas is coming up. We've got this week and next week. And then the following week, we still got 5 shows to go before Christmas. All right. So we'll be with you for 5 shows. And then after that, the office is closed for the week of Christmas. That means support is offline for a week. And, it's one thing that we won't have the support show. But the support office will be closed. We'll be home with our families, celebrating the holidays. And so we won't have support during that week. You need to know that and you need to tell your friends and family. So the support office will be closed for a week, and don't expect a response. We will have an auto response set up at the desk to let people know, hey, we're closed for the week. We'll get back to you as soon as we can when we reopen. And the office will reopen on the 3rd, which means that we will have a support show in the new year. First day back, we will have a support show, and you can bring all your questions. So if you have support questions and they need to happen, the fastest way to probably get them answered is to hold on to them until the support show on the 3rd. So we will be closed for the show on the 27th and on the 29th, and that week of Christmas. Christmas is on the 25th, the Sunday. We'll be closed that following week. We'll be home with our families. We will not be looking at the help desk. There won't be anybody here. So just plan on it. That is a part of belonging to a young company. And I don't foresee that changing too much in the future. So we will probably always take that week off. And that's one of the things about our company is we definitely take time out to spend with our families. We work hard when we're here, but we also take some time off, and that Christmas break is one of them. So heads up, that's what's happening, and you need to know that schedule is changing. So we got 5 more shows. The next one will be on Thursday at 11. Are we talking about audio on Thursday? What do you want to talk about for audio on Thursday? Did I write that down or something and then I passed by? No. This is not on my ideas list. Okay, that's not there. But that one, that's not even anything. So we can. What about audio, GoWeb, do you want to talk about? Hey, how does Dino compare to tools in the NDI toolbox? Are there unique advantages to using Dino? The purpose of Dino is to test your network, to see if your network is able to handle, and in particular, the computer that you're using Dino on, to see if it can handle NDI and how much NDI. And so what you can do is you can bring in a single stream and test that, make sure that's nice and clean. But when you see drop frames inside NDI Dino or inside BirdDog Dino, it doesn't necessarily mean that the device is dropping frames. It means that the network perhaps can't handle it. And so there can still be multiple fail points. It's not really a diagnosis tool. It's more of a limitations testing type of tool. Because what you can do is you can bring in a single source. You shut everything off and open Dino. Bring in a single source that you know is good and solid, and bring in a single source. So a single, watch it. It should, go up to the expected frame rate, go across, nice clean line for the most part. Then go to multiple streams and bring in the same source, but bring it in twice. And then do it for 3 times and see what kind of the threshold limit is. Generally, a standard run-of-the-mill 1 gig port on a computer will top out at about 3 or 4 sources. The way you stabilize it is you can either add multiple NIC cards or a better NIC card, a 10 gig NIC card or something like that, right? But again, you're testing the limitations of the computer. You're not really testing the NDI source necessarily. And people get that kind of confused because they're like, well, I'm testing a quad and I can never get it to be stable. It's like, well, yes, you're testing the 4 sources at the quad. You are testing the signal of the quad, but you're also testing the abilities of this 1 gig card to come in. And if it's like some cheap knockoff or if it's just some cheap 1 gig card, remember, they're listed at peak performance. They're not listed at like market performance, we'll say. So like regular performance. So it can do up to a gig, but it's not 1 gig at all times at full throttle. It might get up to a gig. It's probably going to be more like 500 or 600 megs. And, something brand name, something like the Nike shoe of NIC cards, maybe you're going to get closer to 800 megs. You're never really going to get 1 gig constant performance without performance issues. So be really careful with, I have a 1 gig card. I should be able to do 10 streams. I'll throttle them all down to 80. No. You're probably going to be good for about 500 megs, maybe 6. Okay. And so that's more like 4 streams, maybe 3, really consistent, really clean. I've noticed I have 2 10 gig trunks on my computer that run out of a lightning bolt port that go into a specific chassis that then has this fiber card in it. And I'm using LC mods, multi-mode, a jump over to my switch. The thing screams. I'm getting 15 gigs. Yeah, it's really nerdy. But Dino doesn't really have an issue, right? I can bring across whatever I need because I've got lots of throughput. The issue then becomes CPU usage because the CPU then gets chewed up really fast and not necessarily the GPU stuff. So there you go. I heard rumors about a big update for the PTZ keyboard. Any info about that? What that update is about? No, I actually don't have any update about that. I do know some of the things that they're working on, stabilizing other NDI company cameras and stuff like that. They've been working on that for a long time. But I don't have any specific details about why they would say it's a big update. It increases functionality, that's for sure. No idea when that's coming either, by the way. You should have that note somewhere. We plan to do a show on audio for NDI setup last week. Audio for NDI. Yeah. Yeah, because they have that audio program now, right? Yeah, okay. Let me look into that. Let me write that down. It should be written down somewhere. In particular, GoWeb, do you want to talk about like audio in NDI as an audio source and integrating that into your setups, or what are you thinking there? Like basically like a Dante conversation, but talking about NDI audio? That would be fun. That'd be a fun conversation. So what card do you recommend? I assume this is about the Nick card conversation. There are various brands. The one that I'm using is quite good. I think it's a 10G Tech brand. And I'm using 10G Tech mods, which are also have given me pretty good results, and they're $40 a pair or something like that here in the States. So I'm using a Sonnet box, all right, and then is that what it is? Yeah, Sonnet breakaway box that goes into this machine over Thunderbolt, and then I've got these two 10 gig cards that are running multi-mode fiber, and it's OM3, I think. It's the 10 gig, version of the fiber multi-mode, which isn't actually any more expensive than Ethernet these days. Like a good Cat 6A cable, you can buy fiber for the same price. It's unbelievable. And many of you have talked about me gloat about my network installation over at NAB this past year in April. And it was sweet. It was basically just for me. Because it was me and like Dan, who's also kind of network nerdy. But even the engineers are not that excited about networks. Isn't this so cool? And they're like, yeah, okay, John. Anyway, for me, it was fun. And I actually had some great conversations with studio designers. These guys are like, we're designing the studio. What do you think about networking? And I was like, oh man, so glad you asked me. Here's what we're doing. And I showed them the layout. They were all on board. And I was like, reach out to us and see how it goes. So I've had great results with this device and great results with this 20 gig backbone, which again is like, it might be 6 gigs throughput, like real time. I get that, but it's pretty much 14, 15 gigs, which is overkill. And then you trunk them together. You use I have a program that allows you to trunk NIC cards together and creates a single channel. And NDI by itself will actually load balance pretty well. So yeah, it's working well for me. I like it. How many connections can the P200 stream out? Is it just limited by the one? Yeah, it ends up being limited to the 1 gig port. If you're going to do multiple streams out, then you want to consider multicast, because that will just be a single stream and you let the network handle it. You get really good consistent results, especially when you're doing big installations running multicast. It's now the question is, and I've gotten this a couple times. I had a conversation with the sales guy yesterday, but we've been talking about this kind of at great length for a while now, is it's assumed that multicast is the way to do big NDI installations, but nobody wants to talk about multicast. It's like a we don't talk about Bruno type of situation. It's like, anyway, it's crazy. But yes, multicast, I'm running it. I know Jake runs it in multiple instances, and it works really well. But I'm running it on the 4250 version of multicast, and so setup is pretty minimal. It's going to look different. I was reading a Reddit thread, actually, thanks to that sales guy. I was reading a Reddit thread about, yeah, but how do you actually like set up multicast? Nobody will tell me. And the response is really great response was, well, what are you using? Like, first of all, you need to kind of be a single camp network camp. So Cisco or whatever, and, Netgear or Aruba or HP. You have that. And then you need to go and find out what their requirements, like how they design multicast. It's not just like these 3 buttons are on every network switch across the fleet. No, that's not what this is. It's how does Aruba accomplish multicast? How does Cisco accomplish multicast? The way that they do it is different across the entire networking world, which is super frustrating. But you got to pick a poison and go with it, right? I knew a preacher who used to say, you're going to die of something, so you might as well pick your poison and go with it. That was his justification for drinking Diet Coke. So that's what you have to do. You have to decide, okay, I'm going to go with this switch and this brand, and I'm going to live with their pros and cons, okay? Like all things in life. And then you learn how to do multicast that way. Honestly, the 4250 does it the easiest. For us folks that are not like certified C+, certified network engineers and having our CCNAs and all of that stuff, for those of us who are not in that realm, honestly, the $700 investment on a switch for a 42112p switch is worth it because it takes care of so much of it for you. Not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying it's a whole lot better than you trying to Google how to do it. That's for sure. And on the 4250, I have setup videos for exactly how you do it. So you're welcome. Just to answer that one, audio over networks with NDI. Okay. And so then the only other question is, are you talking about Dante as well? Or are you talking, because I can't help you with the Dante piece yet because I'm ordering Dante devices so that we can add it to the NDI5 stuff so that we can test it against that. I've heard that things are working pretty well together from the lead guys in charge of that unification. But it's always preferred to put Dante on its own VLAN. If you can, just do it. But NDI audio is now becoming a thing. Thank you to the latest NDI update stuff that just went down like 2 months ago. And so that's becoming more prevalent where you can route audio like you can with Dante. But I will need to play around with that before I can speak intelligently about it. So that show may have to get delayed. I don't know. I'm very interested in that keyboard update too. Yeah, me too. I would love to find out more. Please discuss Dante. NDI handles 32 channels of Dante audio. Can NDI handle 32 channels? So Dante Bridge cannot. You're limited there to, I think it's 6 or 8 mono channels or 4 stereo channels. I think it's 8. But, it's kind of like the first iteration, so I suspect that might become more in the future. I don't know. They haven't told me that, and don't quote me. I don't know. I don't know what they're working on. But I'm assuming that it will become more and more as time goes along, because once you figure out how to do something, then you start expanding on it. And that is the nature of BirdDog in and of itself. It might be a different level, too. Like, it might be a Dante Bridge license that does 8. There might be a Pro license that does 64 or whatever. I know that the new version, the controller version that just came out from New Tech or NDI, does like 64 or something like that. And so I have to look into it a little more. It takes that, it requires a few plugins and whatever, but Audio Direct, I think it's what it's called. So how's the data affected for the Netgear switches if you switch the port profiles to NDI, but also use the same port to stream out from a PC? Well, yeah, so ideally what you would do is you would have your internet traffic on a separate VLAN. And then you'd have your NDI traffic on a different VLAN than that. And you'd have a dual NIC card, and you'd go into one and the other. And you configure it that way so that your computer can talk out to the internet out one side of the network, but your NDI stuff is protected. Because you don't really want those packets bouncing into each other and talking to each other. And then data, that could mean a lot of things. And you get into trouble when you start doing like VoIP and you start doing other standards of Wi-Fi, all of that crap. It's best to just isolate the traffic and use a dual NIC card. You can even get away with those little dongle things to test, but I wouldn't recommend that being your long-term solution. The dongles actually might, for streaming purposes, might be sufficient because it's like 6 or 7 megs. But for NDI, don't use dongles for NDI. Full-on production. Use hardline stuff or preferably fiber. But yeah, there's that. SDI originally only supported 8 channels of audio, and eventually now it's up to 16. But to stay compatible with the NDI to SDI converters, I imagine you can't really go above that. I mean, it's more, my reference is more about because NDI right now, like our devices only do 2 channels, right? And so it's not even an SDI standard. We've been around for 5 years. So like I know it is the SDI standard to do 16, which is a regular. They were like, there was something that they were like giving commands over one of the audio channels or something like that to their devices, and they were like, hey, channels 3 and 4 aren't working. And we were like, oh, well, that's because there's only channels 1 and 2 on BirdDog SDI. And they're like, oh, that's a limitation. And I was like, well, that's just kind of the demand. We don't have that high of demand for that. I'm sure in the future, if demand gets loud enough, then the company turns its head. But, they go where the money is, basically, because they're trying to also make a profit. Not all they're up to, but that is part of it. So we're trying to invent cool things. What I have noticed about this 240 shot is that the autofocus is way better than the 100 series. The 110, 120, and the 100 all have this, like, it always focuses right here on the front of the microphone. And this 240 is in autofocus right now, and it has not been hunting too much from what I can tell. But anyways. Yes, I get the ideal world. I'm just not quite there yet. I'll be updating this coming year, but I'm still working with just one. Yeah, so if you're running NDI parallel with your data network, you just have to be conscious that the performance might be compromised with the other data that's happening on the network. I'm not saying it can't be done. As a matter of fact, I'm doing that here on this network. Now, we have phones on this network, VoIP phones. We have our office computers are on this network, and then I have this full studio on this network. However, I'm using groups to isolate this traffic to not talk with other computers on the network, right? Other devices, other decoders, or whatever. So I'm using groups. I have my little studio group, Studio 2901, and that's how I'm kind of keeping my traffic from going and getting used elsewhere. So that creates a fair bit of consistency. I'm also using multicast in many of these instances. Well, that was hard to say. So, I'm allowing the switches, the 4250s on the network to do the packet trafficking and handling a lot of that. So I have it set up where I can kind of block some of that interference, and a group might be a good place to try and like soft isolate your sources that are on a crowded data network. And then it's up to vMix to ship it out to stream. Well, it's actually vMix is outputting NDI, and then StreamYard is taking that and sending that up to the internet, which is a very small, it's like 4 megs or 5 megs or something like that. It's not big at all. So we're able to keep that pretty consistent. Okay, folks, it is 11:15 almost, so I am going to sign off because this just keeps going, and we definitely can. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out and having a good chat session. I'm going to look into the NDI audio show conversation. I need to kind of retool a little bit to understand more of that. I don't do a lot of audio routing. I do a lot of this audio, for example, goes out of the microphone into a preamp, and the preamp goes directly into the computer. I don't turn this into NDI audio at all or anything like that. I don't turn it into Dante. Don't do that. I'm a I'm a don't convert it unless you have to type of guy. So there's that. But I put my vMix machine on my AV LAN and stream straight from there. The trick is there are no other computers. So no, yeah. Spurious broadcast traffic. But yeah, okay. That's a great call. Is that you really should isolate as best you can. And so if that's the case, you got to make the best of it. If you are going to upgrade later, then you can isolate your traffic with a VLAN, which is better yet, if you can. It is compromised. Already found that out with my last broadcast. So I was just wondering if switching the profile to NDI instead of data, if it would give me a little better performance. Oh yeah, it might. I see what you mean. Yeah, that might give you a little better. It'll obviously, the ports will all be set up for specifically for NDI function. So yeah, you'd probably get better performance out of that than data if you're running a 4250 for sure. Actually, almost guaranteed it'd probably be a little more stable. And if you use the NDI 5 profile, it enables you to use multicast if you want. So there you go. Okay, folks, you're welcome, GoWeb. I have to sign off. I got to get going. So don't forget the news. We're over on Twitter. If you want to tweet at us for any reason, that will go directly to our support desk, and my agents are waiting with bated breath for your inquiries. But if it can wait, join us on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time here in the U.S. We'd be happy to give you a hand, talk in real time. These discussions are always great. You never know who's listening in the background. Maybe they've had the same question you do. So bring your questions. Hit us up in the chat. Let us know. If you follow us over on Twitter, the show is streaming over there too. So that's always cool. If you would, if you do that, that'd be fun. And it's a great place to connect with other NDI people to use an NDI in the field. So yeah, always good stuff. Great to have you guys along. Thank you again, Alex. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you can come back soon. It'd be great to see you again. And Angus, of course, as always, my friend. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you too. So yeah, and in the meantime, if you can't wait or you got something that comes up and you really need somebody to take a look at things, we have a help desk that is fully functional, and our agents are there 5 days a week. Help at BirdDog.tv. We are out on weekends, but we try and get to everything that we possibly can. And the team is like every day they're getting better. They're getting faster. They're learning a lot. It's been really cool to watch that team grow. And so we've got agents, multiples now. They all work out of this office, and they're all doing good stuff out of there. And yeah, they're moving in the right direction. I'm really excited about their progress. If you have questions about the product line, like you want to know more about the products but you haven't purchased any, you can reach our sales guys over at Hello. And they're great at helping you flesh out ideas as to like, yeah, you can use it for this or use it this way, or here's a configuration. They might be able to record you, like Jake recording a quick video for somebody. Show hey, yeah, look, here's how I do it, and it's just a couple of minutes, and then they can shoot that off to you. So Hello is a great way to learn more about the products. And we have agents in that department all over the world. And so if you got questions and you want to just, hey, I have this idea, or are there any P240s over here in, Siberia? Go ahead and ask. And the appropriate pre-sales guy will get a hold of you and let you know, what your options are. Always a great way. Or if it's like, hey, we want to roll out a big scale version of NDI, how do we do that? They'll have time. They each have the ability to set up meetings or whatever. So if you really need to sit down and hash it out, talking about money and talking about installations and recommendations and all that, they can get on a call with you. They can bring me into that call if it's probably required. We try and really make it happen. So the guys over at pre-sales at hello@birddog.tv, they are the best in the biz, man. I love them. They do great work and really good guys to get to know. They're at a lot of our major trade shows. So you might talk to them here online and then meet them at the shows. Great place to start kind of flushing out, like it would be a dream to have NDI. Let's actually talk about what it might take. And it may not be as far off as you think it is. So, and of course, over on YouTube, BirdDogJohn.tv, that is my YouTube page. And if you'd follow me there, I'd really appreciate it. We're moving in the right direction. But we have this little DNS redirect that takes you over there, BirdDogJohn.tv, and that is the official support YouTube page that I run Everything I do on this studio at least shows up there. And now it's going to end up on that Twitter page as well. So great stuff. I really appreciate you guys hanging around with us. Hopefully you've had, you've had a good time. Hopefully you've maybe learned something. And if you haven't, thanks for hanging out anyways. Really appreciate that. It's always a pleasure. Always thanks to all of you guys that are hanging out in the chat. It means a lot. And we're looking forward to a busy but productive week here at BirdDog. And we're going to see you again on Thursday, hopefully at 11. And if that's not going to happen, I will send a message out, social media channels, let you guys know, probably on Twitter. Let you guys know what the plan is. But right now the plan is 11 o'clock Eastern time here in the U.S. Hang out with you and, get a chance to chat again. So bring your questions, bring your friends, and we'll do it again in a couple of days. Take care of yourselves. Cheers, guys.
And then